As Colby students, we eat at our dining halls every day, often several times a day. Although we often think about what's on our plates, we never stop to think about where it comes from. For our final project in Lijing Jiang's Global Food Health and Society class, we wanted to do a project that asked the question, where does our food come from, and how is Colby making an effort to buy locally and sustainably? As is displayed in all of our dining halls, here's a list of all the local sources that provide us food. This took us to Cold Spring Ranch, Emery Farms, and Wolfe's Neck Center to learn more about where the food we eat comes from.
My name's Trent Emery, and I'm the owner and the manager of Emery Farm, which is a small, diversified vegetable farm here in central Maine.
We visited Trent in late November, which for produce in Maine is the off-season. Nevertheless, Trent showed us around his farm and property. These shots are from inside one of his many greenhouses in which he grows different kinds of produce. How long have you been delivering produce to Colby?
We have been working with Colby now, I think we just completed our third season.
And from the food getting harvested here, how long does it take for it to get to our dining halls?
Oftentimes we do it the day of.
Wow, yeah.
Oftentimes.
Do you provide to supermarkets?
Currently we are not working with supermarkets. We currently work with institutions like Colby and other cafeterias, hospitals, schools, things of that nature.
Yeah.
And we're entering our 10th year as full-time farmers, and for me the inspiration or the motivation towards farming was directly related to land use, sustainable resources, management of land in the local environment, and what we as a community or individuals were capable of providing.
What sustainable practices have you implemented on the farm?
So, the things that we need to manage on the farm sustainably are the water resource, irrigation, which you see behind us, our soil nutrients, and we need to protect those so we can grow season every season. And an example is our cover cropping, which you can see some of the cover crop through the snow behind me.
Yeah.
Those are soil, help maintain soil structure so we don't get erosion, and also add biomass nutrients, and they also give you weed control, and there's a host of benefits that come from that use.
Awesome. What do you think is the benefit of buying locally for a place like Colby as opposed to like an industrial farm that just from Cisco or another place like that?
That's a really great question, and I think that there's many benefits that come from buying locally. There's the benefit to you, the consumer, the person who's eating it, is the freshness. It tastes, the quality of taste, the quality of the product. There's a benefit to the cafeteria, the chef, because of they've got a shelf life. If we're harvesting that day and bringing it to you, within a 48 hour period, there's hopefully not a lot of waste of product, so everything that they're getting is utilized. And then there's the benefits to the community in terms of the economic sustainability, in terms of keeping your dollars locally. So the dollar comes to us, we pass the dollar to our neighbor, the contract. So there's just like a nice, hopefully a more closed loop circle for our economic sustainability. It just benefits the neighborhood, your neighbor. It's just
good all around.
We can farm. We can farm in Maine, knowing that we have a market 40 minutes from us. We can keep this land open. We can maintain open space. We can have, biodiversity on the farm. So there's the benefits of like sort of the direct consumption of the product, the vegetable, but there's other outlying benefits to the community.
Next, we went to Wolfe's Neck Center in Freeport, Maine, about an hour from campus. We had the chance to meet with David Herring, the executive director of the center, who showed us around and gave us the opportunity to interview him. The whole property is 600 acres and is used for education, as a campground, and also as a dairy farm. They are working with Stonyfield, the nation's largest yogurt producer, to expand, and are currently building a new dairy center to replace their existing infrastructure. Since David specializes in ensuring sustainability, he was able to explain to us the importance of local, sustainable agriculture.
So my name is Dave Herring. I'm Executive Director here at Wolfe's Neck Center for Agriculture and the Environment. I've been here about 6.5 years, and Wolfe's Neck Center is a 626-acre coastal nonprofit working farm and agricultural and research center. We have an operating organic dairy and a variety of other small-scale diversified livestock enterprises. We have fruit and vegetable production. We have a campground which sees about 30,000 overnight visitors a year, and a variety of educational and research initiatives going on from farm camp and stuff for little kids all the way up to career development work with the Organic Dairy Farmer Training Program. Over the last few years, we've been heavily focused on soil health research and other types of research that are helping us understand the outcomes that we're having on the environment where we're farming.
Great.
Well, so we have a broad and diverse set of demographics for who we serve at Wolfe's Neck. We have community members here in Freeport and the surrounding area that utilize this place as kind of a home farm on some level. So we have about 35 CSA shares that we sell each summer. You guys are probably familiar with the community supported agriculture, where you buy a share at the beginning of the season, and then each week throughout the growing season that share pays back in yield from the production gardens. They send their kids to farm camp. They will come here and walk their dog. They'll come potentially and go camping, but most of our visitors that come here to go camping are from further away. So we have people who come from just about every state across the country, and international visitors as well. Maine has a strong tourism economy, and we have visitors from all over the world, and that's no different for us here at Wolfe's Neck. We're only a half hour from Portland and not far off the 295 corridor, and 5 miles from the largest tourism destination in Maine. That is Elo Bean, and so we see a small percentage of the visitors that they see, and we joke that a third of all the people that come to Freeport don't want to go shopping anyway, and so they end up out here.
Definitely true.
And we're also adjacent to the second most visited state park in Maine. That's Wolfe Neck Woods State Park, which is a unique state park in that they don't have any camping, which many of the other state parks do, but they have wonderful trails, and it's adjacent to Wolfe's Neck Center that has a campground, and so it's a nice partnership that we have with them. So a big part of what we have here is kind of an agritourism enterprise with the campground and visitors. We pride ourselves on being authentic, and within the agritourism world, there's agritainment, which we steer away from. I would say that's things like corn mazes and like haunted hay rides and some of these things, which those are fine too, but that's just not what our focus is. Our focus really is more on visitor education. So we want visitors to come here and enjoy this place, certainly, and enjoy the landscape and enjoy being here. But we want them to gain knowledge while they're here. We want them to gain inspiration. We want them to leave with a new perspective, perhaps on eating and on health and their role within the food system and the importance of buying local or buying organic or both. And so a lot of our programming is focused on providing them with touch points that they wouldn't normally get, certainly wouldn't get at the grocery store or at a restaurant or other touch points that they have with food. They're not going to get the same kind of authenticity and in-depth experience that they'll get at a working farm, where we have a cafe and we have a farm store and farm stand, and those things are directly adjacent to the barns and the fields where that food is being produced. So that, I think that is an experience that people are increasingly interested in and looking for. Our milk is sold to Stonyfield, and that's really the only product that is sold is sold kind of off-site. Although we sell it, they come and pick it up here, but we have such an influx of visitors who come here. We don't really need to look for off-site markets. So we don't go to farmers markets. We don't sell in grocery stores or markets. All of what we grow or produce on farm is sold on farm. And that's very intentional, in part because we have so many visitors here. We want them to have an opportunity to purchase a product or enjoy some yield from our gardens. But we also don't want to compete with other farmers in the marketplace. So we don't want to attempt to be on the grocery store shelf next to a small-scale farmer that doesn't maybe have the same land base or opportunities that we have as a nonprofit farm. We kind of see our role as existing to support all farmers and to support the rural economy in Maine, and not so much just to produce a product. So sometimes people will say, like, well, what kind of farmer are you? I mean, what do you sell? And typically my first answer is we produce experiences, where we also produce some farm products, and that's obviously going to be an outcome of farming. It just so happens that you can produce products, but for us, it's so much more important to produce those experiences that can have an impact, whether you're 3 years old and this is the first time you've tasted a blueberry that you've picked from a blueberry bush, or you're 65 years old and you've never seen a cow get milk before, but you've been drinking milk your whole life. And all of those experiences and all experiences in between, have relevance and importance, and I think we feel like that's a great opportunity for us.
What's the benefit of buying locally as opposed to a large-scale industrial farm?
Well, I mean, there are multiple benefits, and I think it depends on the lens that you want to look through, and I think we kind of look through 3 or 4 different lenses. We'll look through kind of the health lens, and I think that there's a wealth of knowledge and research and evidence that shows that products that are produced locally and consumed locally are going to be better for you from a number of perspectives, but not the least of which is it's fresher, and fresher food is just better for you than food that's been maybe stored or maybe was picked long before it was ripened, and they timed that distribution and transportation process for their product to ripen on the way from California or wherever. And so the strawberries that you eat in the summer here in Maine, that are picked in Maine when they're ripe and eaten within a day or two of being picked, are just going to be so much better for you and taste dramatically better than the strawberries that we can get in the grocery store now that might look ripe, but they weren't ripe when they were picked 3 weeks ago, and they've been ripening in the container along the way, and that process doesn't produce the same type of health benefits as a product that's ripened in its natural existence. So there's the health lens. There's the kind of the community lens, the community/economy lens, that I think is undeniably an important piece of this. When you're purchasing food from your community, you're supporting people in your community, and by supporting them, they're supporting you. And in a lot of the communities across Maine, there's there are challenges that those communities are facing because there aren't jobs, and without jobs there are less people, and Maine is the oldest state in the country with a median age of 45, I think, and so when we consume local foods, we're supporting local farmers, we're supporting local jobs, and we're supporting keeping land in our state actively working for us. And that's actually a good segue to maybe the third lens, which is the environmental lens. So when you consume a product that was grown locally, it's supporting local ecosystems, it's supporting ecosystem services, and it doesn't need the same type of transportation and distribution that a product that was produced in Holland or in Costa Rica or in California. And we all know that, sure, avocados are delicious, and I can hardly go a day without eating some avocado, but there's an impact to that, and you have to kind of think about that as you're eating it, and think about, well, okay, nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something to support a more local food system. So if it means that, for 6 months, I'm not going to eat lettuce, I'll eat kale and spinach and other hardy greens that are able to be grown in season extension, high tunnels and greenhouses in Maine. And I'll focus if I'm going to be eating meat, I'm going to eat meat just from Maine, from farmers that I know. I'm going to drink just organic milk that I know is produced here in Maine and processed in New Hampshire, if it's Stonyfield milk. And maybe my one indulgence will be avocados and the occasional box of strawberries, and it's important that we all see that there's something that we can be doing to support local food, and nobody's going to be able to do everything, but we all have to do something.
Our final trip was to Cold Spring Ranch in New Portland, Maine, where Colby sources all of its beef and pork. The ranch is owned and operated by Gabe Clark and his wife Molly, who is a Colby alum. Gabe and Molly were nice enough to welcome us into their home and farm, and Gabe gave us a great tour as well as allowing us to interview him.
My name is Gabe Clark. I own and operate Cold Spring Ranch. I've been here since 2005, fall of 2005. And we raise beef cattle and pork. We've been doing the beef since 2005, and the pork we started back around 2010, but we started doing more of it in the last couple of years.
How long have you been delivering food to Colby?
This isn't going to help as much. We started delivering to Colby in August, so it's only been this year.
Oh, that's great.
So we're relatively new to Colby.
Mm-hmm. And how long does the food, the meat from getting processed to showing up at our dining hall?
Yep. So the Colby uses our beef for the burgers on campus. From what I understand, all the burgers on campus are Cold Spring Ranch grass-fed beef. The animals will be processed usually on a Monday, and the following Wednesday it's going to be there at Colby in the dining services. Beef tends to do well from aging, so that's why on a Monday it has about 8 days that it ages, and that helps in flavor and tenderness.
Mm-hmm. Do you provide to supermarkets, or what's your main clientele?
Yep, so we kind of divide our marketing up into four kind of segments. We have direct customer sales. We have almost 200 direct customers we sell to on kind of it's kind of like a meat CSA model where we deliver down to Portland about once a month, and customers meet us and pick up. So we actually have a delivery for that going out next week. Then we have what we call industrial or institutional customers, so like Colby, their colleges. And we have grocery stores we sell to. We sell to Portland Food Co-op, Bow Street Market, a butcher shop down the coast called Main Street Meats, Whole Foods in Portland, and sometimes some other markets. And then the last thing is we have restaurant sales. We have restaurants that seasonally use us and work with us to vary cuts because of our small scale. We can't always provide everything they need.
What sustainable environmental practices have you implemented on the farm?
Yep. So my background and some of my wife's background have been in agriculture and environmental work. And so when we look at our farm, we kind of look at it trying to have sustainability covered for the environment, for the animals. And so what we do when we're setting up our farming system, we're looking at how it can benefit wildlife. Usually our cattle are only on about 5% of our land at any one time. They get moved daily, sometimes 36 hours. And so they're utilizing a piece and moving and utilizing a piece, and the rest of the farm is basically left open for wildlife to use. We have about 150 to 200 bird watchers who come every spring and have guided bird watching tours. Not that we guide, but somebody who knows something about birds guides. We try to create like edge effect where we have the woods and the fields against each other. Those are real high value habitat areas. Our riparian areas are all fenced off, so we're not impacting them. We have nutrient management plans for our manure, so we ensure that when we're using our manure, we're using it in a way that is benefiting the soil and improving our productivity of our grass for the animals, but not impacting the environment. We farm kind of in a unique situation where there's a lake on the corner of the property, there's the river that's draining the lake on the other edge of the property, and the name Cold Spring Ranch is actually because about 1,600 feet up the hill behind us, there's a spring that provides all our water gravity feed. So there's a lot of water around here. We need to be aware and making sure that we're not having an impact on that. We've tried to make sure that when we're setting up farming practices, we're taking into consideration water impacts, air impacts. We compost all of our cattle manure so that when spreading on the farm, it doesn't bother our neighbors who have summer camps on the lake. So there's no odors. Trying to think what else. We have the composting facility for that. But yeah, we try to make sure that we're adopting kind of whatever are the best management practices and trying to be creative and flexible to find other ways to improve further.
And what do you think is the benefit of buying locally as opposed to an industrial farm for a place like Colby?
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be on the video, but you guys saw before, I have a local employee. This is not the most economically successful part of the state or part of the country. And there's a big opportunity for people who are really focused on trying to make local businesses work, have an impact. So we have local employees. Our cattle are raised by 2 other farms in the state. They are raised till they're about a weaning age, and then they come to us at about 10 months of age, and we deal with finishing them. So there's 2 other farming enterprises that are benefiting from kind of this local focus on buying. Nothing that goes into our cattle is from out of state. All the hay is local. Our processor is local, so there's a whole other set of local jobs that are generated by that. We really kind of focus and try to make sure that our money stays as locally as possible. So from an economic standpoint, we're building kind of that community strength. There's a state of resilience and talking about climate change and what's coming from that area. Not shipping stuff across the country. Try to be efficient with that. Our delivery trucks are still running relatively full, so we're not, even though it's a smaller delivery truck, our efficiencies are still relatively high. Having that local ability is quite I think a strength. If you look at, it's been in the news recently, there was, I don't know how many millions of pounds of burger were recalled in the last month. When things get built into that size of a business and a infrastructure that wheels out that much product, you have a higher risk when you contaminate one little bit and it can spread through that big of a volume. It certainly is a high risk thing. So we work very closely with our butcher to make sure that everything is done right, and food safety is kind of paramount at that facility. And I think that's another piece that adds for Colby. I think it's good for people to be able to connect and know where their food comes from. My wife and I were not raised with the agriculture backgrounds in our families. We're fortunate to raise our kids with that, but it's fun that somebody else is learning, more about agriculture, connecting back to it. We're down to less than 2% of the population involved with agriculture, so it's a real, just like today, having you guys out here, it's an opportunity for people to really understand what it takes to make food production. I think, in the different times we had people come and talk to us. When we started out, we had 24 animals here the first year, and years later we had somebody come visit us and we had 75 at that point, and they said, isn't this a large operation? And I explained to them kind of the economics, where I still didn't have it as a viable sole source of income for a family of 4. And so, understanding kind of what needs for scale, connecting consumers and customers with how that's got to work to fit is good for them to know, whether it is coming from away or close by. But I think that's another key component of local agriculture.
As we headed back to Colby, we had the opportunity to reflect on what we had learned. Everyone we interviewed stressed the importance of buying locally in the 3 facets that we were looking to explore: economically, environmentally, and nutritionally. These 3 themes are present throughout each interview. We can't express our gratitude enough to Trent, David, and Gabe for welcoming us into their place of business and taking the time to talk with us about what they do. Without them, this project would not have been possible. I hope that Colby students, faculty, and staff who have watched this video can appreciate the lengths at which our dining services go to ensure that we have fresh, safe, and local products in our dining halls from reputable sources.